through storms, unshaken, unbowed, through trials and verdicts, still standing proud, a titan in the tempest, against the raging crowd. He's got a vision for the future, gonna shout it loud. Change in the wind, it's coming fast, a new foundation built to last. Cryptocurrency's the key, make the big switch, power to the people, time to teach the rich. Legal battles can't hold him, he's moving on, with plans so bold, from dusk till dawn. He's rewriting the rules, a new dawn's day, from the hands of the few to the people's way. Say goodbye to all chains, embrace the new, a financial revolution, fair and true. For the workers, the dreamers, side by side, in Trump's new era, let freedom rise. Change in the wind, it's coming fast, a new foundation built to last. Cryptocurrency's the key, make the big switch, power to the people, time to ditch the rich. He's a fighter, a leader with a plan to share, a world of justice, well spread fair. Forget the old guards, the time is done, under the banner of Trump, we all have won. So here's to the future, bright and clear, with Trump at the helm, we've nothing to fear. The chains will break, and we'll all see a new world for you, a new world for me. Change in the wind, it's coming fast.
What is up, everybody? Sorry, guys, I let the song go a little bit longer today. I was enjoying it myself far too much, and so my apologies for everyone for delaying the start right there. But I hope everyone is having a wonderful, wonderful Trump day. And welcome to the Crazy Kryptonaut channel. I am Zester, and thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to go ahead and start doing this before I say hellos. Thank you, Kukla, as always. But keep in mind, guys, everything that is expressed on the channel is for educational and entertainment purposes alone and should not be viewed as financial or legal advice. Please consult a professional before making any major decisions. Thank you, Kukla, as always, and hello. And also, thank you for letting everyone know that things are going to be a little bit delayed today. And now let's jump into the hellos before we get into the news. And as a matter of fact, I ended up finding something, well, this was something digging very, very deep into the bill proposed by Senator Cynthia Lummis that was announced on the same day as Donald Trump in regards to revaluing gold. Was actually built into that bill. And so that's another thing we're going to be talking about today that, well, there's a lot of implications behind all of it. And so interesting stories, but first let's say hello. What's up, Crazy Chester? Yes, I see you. Please don't. Little Tina wants attention. And what's up, Captain Spiffy? Hope you're having a wonderful one. And I noticed later on that Captain Spiffy, you might have had a few CBD gummies today. And so don't worry. Don't worry. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. It is Trump Day. We have to celebrate it each week. What's up, Edward Kazor? Hello, Zester. Gold was $3.40 from 2,500, and whatever happened about BlackRock and XLM? Those are some good questions there, Edward. And The gold part is actually something we're going to be talking about today. In regards to BlackRock and XLM, we haven't gotten any updates in regards to their partnership and what they're busy doing. So hopefully we get some of that information soon. What is up, Gary? Coming in at number 4 on clicking the like. Thank you so much, Gary. And you had some quality jokes today in the chat. I appreciate it. Welcome, Linda Hearn. I hope you're having a great one also. And hey there, Jeremy. Oh, and Flying Squirrel 89. What is up? What is up, guys? Lots of so many good jokes from Gary today. I really enjoyed that one. Gary with, I bought a dog off a blacksmith today. As soon as I got him home, he made a bolt for the door. That is a hardcore dad joke right there, Gary. And I love it. Lonnie Marie, welcome. And where do cows go on date nights? Movies. Another good one. And Captain Spiffy, I really want to know what is going on with the US billion Bitcoin sale. We're going to be talking about that one also. We're also going to be talking about the fact that the government is gone very quiet over it. I think that they made a really big mistake doing that right after the Trump announcement. I think they thought they could just get away with it and that no one was going to really notice and that people weren't going to get angry. And now there seems to be a little bit of a backtracking occurring, but at the same time, the auction seems to still be going to occur. But a lot of officials are trying to backtrack on their statements. They're trying to say, oh, no, this was already planned. We had already told people. Now, they hadn't told people, and it wasn't planned. But that's what they're trying to claim. And so we'll jump into that one also, Captain Spiffy, because that is insanity. And there's more on top of it. Mt. Gox is also going through some major sales in regards to everything. And so we have a good bit to jump into on that part. All right, guys, though, I want to make certain we get through all of these first. Yeah, Captain Spiffy, what a super duper amazing time to be alive and part of the Z family universe. ZFU. I like that, Captain. Thank you so much for being here, as always. All right, guys. Oh, musical lady. My brother Brian went home to Jesus Monday night at age 50. He had end-stage liver failure due to his health struggles all his life, fighting battles with leukemia and neurological side effects. Musical lady, know that my prayers, and I would imagine the entire community's prayers, are going out to not only you, but all of your family and Brian as well. I am so sorry. So very, very sorry to hear that. But of course, it is a better place. Although that really does not give a lot of consolation or good feels to those of us that are still here. But I am so sorry to hear that, and know that you and your family will be in my prayers. And I know also they will be in the original Mark Z's prayers. Captain Spiffy, oh, great crypto overlord. What will you show us today? Maybe I've had too many gummies. That was the comment that I was referencing earlier. Captain Spiffy, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at all. Sometimes you need an extra gummy or two. Sometimes you need one. What's up, Karen? What's up, LG Lady? Oh, welcome, Emma. Thank you guys all so much for joining. And welcome, Petrichor. Well, I know there's not always great things going on, but it's still a happy Trump day, because I know that for all of us that are going through all of these trials and tribulations, that we have a lot to look forward to in the future in a multitude of different ways. And so no matter what, it's a happy Trump day, but there are always so many other things going on in the world. And Emma, hey, Zester, how are you and the kitties? I am doing well. The kitties are going through a little bit of a spat at the moment in regards to them becoming roommates. They're still not settled on the issue. And really the problem is Tino. He wanted to be an only child. He is no longer an only child, and Tino finds that to be very upsetting. And so Tina is happy as a clam. There's absolutely no problem in the world as far as Tina is concerned. But Tino is still a little bit upset. It's the hanging out with Tino time is very important each day in order to make certain he stays happy. Oh, what is up, Neil? Howdy, Zester from 93 degrees Graham. Well, Neil, today is definitely a day where I'm a little bit jealous of your hot summer because we are dealing with the tropical, I don't know what they're calling it, a tropical wave that is currently going over Puerto Rico. I'm not certain what that necessarily means, but needless to say, it means that there's a lot of rain going on outside at the moment. So thank you, as always, Neil, for my weather update in the North Kakalaki. And I would have to say I'm jealous of you today. All right. Hey, Roxanne. Hi, Zester. I can't figure out the other platform. What ledger wallet do you recommend, please? And thank you. So for those that do want a hardware wallet, what I always recommend in regards to it, because it's what I use, is I recommend the Ledger Nano S Plus. And so I'm going to go ahead and toss that link into the chat for anyone that does want to go get one of those. And so that will be my Linktree link. It will be that Ledger hardware wallet link there at the bottom of the page. Click on that. It'll take you to the right page. It'll guarantee you're going to a safe place. And you'll get $10 of free Bitcoin for making the purchase. And so, you know, that always helps. And so, Roxanne, that is the Nano S Plus. Ledger Nano S Plus. That's what I recommend because it's what my entire life is filled with. I have Zesters sitting in front of me, aka mine. I think I have Riley's sitting in front of me somewhere. Yep, Riley's. They are all the exact same type and model. It's the S Plus. It's what I use. All right. Oh, well, Terry Huey, that's so you know where I could get help with my ledger. I bought one and can't set it up right. I do have some live streams from the early days of the channel, Terry, where I go through some of the setup, but I also could help out with that one in one of the coming streams. Maybe I do need to do another setup video, one that's more up to date, because the software changes over time. And that means sometimes when I went and I clicked in a certain spot in the video, it's now in a different spot. So I will look to do another new one, Terry, but I know that if you go back to some of the original videos on the channel, we do have, and they would be in the live section. So whenever you're looking at YouTube, there's a difference between a pre-recorded video and a live video. I don't know why they do it that way, but that's how they do it. And you'll be able to see one from the early days on setting up a ledger. But Terry, do not fret. We will get you that video. I promise. All right, guys. And yeah, I think it is a good idea to do an updated podcast every once in a while with all of these different software programs. Things change. They push out updates. The updates normally are a good thing, but they make some of the older videos where we go through a tutorial and we click here and we click there and it says this, and now they suddenly don't. It makes for a lot of confusion. And so I think that's a good idea. An updated setup video for the ledger would be a great one to go through. And so I will. And I also have gotten a lot better with all of the setup and the technology since then. So I imagine the video will be a little bit more polished in regards to the whole procedure. And so That is on the agenda. As a matter of fact, let's do that on Friday. Let's just go ahead and say Friday, we're going to do a ledger setup video. And we're going to go through a bit more again on hardware wallets, how they're set up, and we're going to set everyone's up on Friday. That will be the Friday stream now. And so, unless some kind of insane news comes out and that ends up taking all the time, that will go ahead and be what we start with. And so, for all those that have their ledgers, be ready on Friday. Come with that ledger ready to go, and we'll go through it all together in one fell swoop. We'll do the whole setup process. I think that would be a really, really good one. All right, guys. All right. And so we do have some fun news to jump into, guys. And also, I have a bit of an announcement at the end of the stream, but let's get into our news first and jump on in, because I am somewhat excited. There was a very, very weird and interesting announcement essentially that came out, because we now have access to Cynthia Lummis's strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation. And that is going to cause a very, very large stir in the RV community. Just as a heads up, I think this is actually going to be something that you're probably going to be hearing about a little bit more tonight when I do jump into it. But first things first, as always, we've got to go through and see what the markets look like. So Bitcoin sitting at right under 65,000, definitely feeling the pressure. We're absolutely, I have the answer. I know why. When it comes down to it, Mt. Gox also, and we've talked about this one quite a few times, the Mt. Gox Bitcoin maneuvers as they're trying to pay out all their investors. Keep in mind that the Mt. Gox procedure is being directed by the government. And so Mt. Gox is releasing $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. They've moved over to other wallets. And we also know that the US government has already moved over $2 billion worth of their Bitcoin. And so we now have the government, the current administration has now moved $4 billion over to be liquidated. And it is causing an immense degree of fear in the crypto markets, because $4 billion now we're starting to talk about enough money to start causing major liquidations. And it is all being funneled through the current administration. They are the ones that are in control of this process. So we know that more money is being moved over. It does just continue to remain extremely obvious that the current administration, the Biden administration, is doing everything in their power to keep the price of cryptocurrency down. Following Donald Trump's announcements over this past weekend, they are doing absolutely everything they can to suppress the price. Whether it is a matter of releasing negative news stories, they're even targeting specific tokens, it seems like at this point. But the biggest thing they can do is they can influence with scare tactics in regards to their sales. They have enough of this crypto to be scary for your average investor. And so now we have $4 billion of sales from the government looming over our heads, whereas when we talked on Monday, we only had $2 billion of government Bitcoin lying over our heads. So it has doubled essentially in these past 2 days. And I have absolutely no doubt that it is the administration pushing these different levers in order to make all these things occur at the same time. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, Trump made the announcement. We have had major positive announcements from everything, and yet we are seeing prices struggle hard. Bitcoin, I mean, when we look at everything that is going on, and so Right now, that announcement actually, and so the announcement that Mt. Gox had also moved the money. Do you want to guess when it occurred? It occurred somewhere right around, 3 p.m. is when that announcement came out. And guess what happened? The price of Bitcoin started to plummet, as is normalcy. Whenever someone says they're about to sell $2 billion worth of any specific commodity, the vast majority of the other people that hold it start to get a little bit scared. It makes sense. But all of this, in my mind, is being entirely manufactured. They are just desperate right now to try and nullify the Donald Trump effect. All right, though, this is really this was insanely exciting. This story has been kind of circulating around, but it has, well, it has a lot of depth, and it wasn't a very popular story in the vast majority of mainstream media. But I have a feeling that we are going to find it far more interesting than everybody else. And so, Cynthia Lummis is a pro-Bitcoin Republican senator who has endorsed and put out legislation actually on the same day as Trump came out and announced the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. So it's obvious that her and Donald Trump are working together. They made that announcement on the same day. That makes it pretty apparent that something is going on. And in her announcement on Saturday, she didn't really discuss the details of what was going to be included inside of the bill. Her idea is to go ahead and have the United States government actually secure 5% of all the Bitcoin supply as a matter of a national strategic reserve in order to back up the US dollar, in order to back up US support for the blockchain technology in this growing industry. And we didn't really have the details on what she meant and how she planned on doing that. Now we have more. Now we have far more information in regards to how she plans on doing it. And so, U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve to be funded partly by revaluing the Fed's gold is what the draft bill shows. This to me has a lot of, there's a lot of ways to go with this. By revaluing the Fed's gold. What does she mean? How are we going to, assuming that, the current markets are all accurate, let's live in fairy tale land. How is she planning on revaluing gold in order to support the purchase of these Bitcoin reserves? And so the purchase of Bitcoin for a new strategic reserve would be financed partly by revaluing the Federal Reserve's gold, according to draft legislation from U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis's office. This plan proposes establishing a Bitcoin purchase program of up to 200,000 Bitcoin a year over a 5-year period. Now, this in and of itself, I think everyone should probably be, I imagine there is a lot of speculation going on. She is saying that we are going to go through and revalue gold, the Fed's gold. There's a lot to jump into on that one. There is an absolute lot. What does she mean? Revalue the Federal Reserve's gold. Is she going to revalue the value of all gold? Because the value of the Fed's gold can't be different than the value of my gold. That doesn't add up. How is she saying that this is going to result in the U.S. government having the ability to actually go in and purchase billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin Question marks, guys. Question marks, guys. I'm starting. These are far too many of these words are sounding very, very similar to what we hear in regards to a lot of other currencies. A lot of other currencies, and their backing and their reserves are based off of a matter of revaluation. We've heard that term. We've heard revaluation, redenomination. We've heard all of these a million times. And now we're hearing that they're planning on moving us to a digital currency, and they're planning on revaluing the gold held by the Federal Reserve. If we are going towards a gold back, and so just love, this is all getting so confusing. So essentially what I'm kind of alluding to, or at least I think has become more of a question mark, is that if we're moving towards a world where our currency, where our value is backed by actual physical goods, gold, silver, well, then what is required to do that? We can't back it with what currently exists. We can't back it with the current price. We know that the current value of gold and silver is not accurate. It is worth far more than that. And so we could not possibly back our currency with gold and silver if the value of gold and silver were going to be what it is currently today. Mathematically, it doesn't add up. But if, per se, we were to revalue gold, and we were to revalue the Federal Reserve's gold, which by revaluing the Federal Reserve's gold, we would essentially be revaluing the value of gold universally. Universally, we would have to revalue it. If the Federal Reserve's gold is worth 10 grand an ounce, well, then my gold is worth 10 grand an ounce. Logically speaking, if it doesn't work that way, the whole system doesn't work. And so that is where I think there's a really, really big question to be had here. And so I'm going to be immediately posting this link into the chat, because I feel like in terms of our community and the things that we're really focused on and the things I know so many people are looking towards, there is a lot to be taken out of this one. And I have absolutely no doubt. And I'm going to go ahead and place myself on the line. You are going to hear other people that are coming from the truther patriot movement commenting on this legislation and what it's stating in the coming days. I am not going to be the last. I just maybe might have been the first, but I'm definitely not going to be the last, because what she lays out in that legislation, now that we have full access to it and everybody's able, well, and not full access, guys, that was a misspeak on my term. We have draft access to this legislation. There are a lot of really, really big questions. Essentially, she's saying we can manage this if we are capable of revaluing gold. Why? Why would she include that? She is working with Donald Trump. She made the announcement in regards to her legislation on the exact same day that Donald Trump announced a national strategic reserve for the United States. So they're working together. And her announcement states that they're going to revalue gold in the legislation. These two things happen at the same time. Same day, obviously, they're working together. Lummis and Trump, obviously, are working together. That, or there is a major leak going on between these two people, and they have similar, or, well, pretty much identical politics, so that doesn't really add up. And now we're getting to see the bill. Maybe we are getting some extremely large announcements in terms of what's occurring in the financial system. If we're talking about revaluing gold, we're talking about revaluing a lot of things. The very idea of wealth would be being revalued. If we believe that gold, precious metals, legitimate value is something that we are aspiring to. We're aspiring to have currency, money. And I know everybody throws terms around willy-nilly in that field. There really is a big distinction. But if we're going to have something that is backed entirely by real-world assets, it's legitimate, we're going to have to revalue gold. This bill discusses that. That could mean that we are starting to have real conversations about changing the financial system. That to me, Gary said, would it be Donald Trump's plan to move Federal Reserve to Bitcoin Reserve to give it back to us? Well, to me, could it be a matter of being able to create a system where we are able to back up our dollars by real world assets? And so whenever we look at all of these other aspects of this entire process, there are a lot of different commodities, goods, assets that all need to change in value for this to make sense. It won't make sense if they don't. Gold has got to go up in value. Silver has got to go up astronomically in value for this to make sense. And maybe these things are occurring on different stages and at different levels. And so for me, this was the biggest news of the day that I could present because of what we are as a community so interested in. And I also want to continue on in terms of the way she discusses it in the bill. According to the draft bill, under the working short title of the Bitcoin Act of 2024, the Treasury Secretary would establish a decentralized network of secure Bitcoin storage facilities distributed across the United States, selecting the locations for the vaults based on a comprehensive risk assessment, prioritizing geographic diversity, security, and accessibility. And so, the Bitcoin purchases would be financed through a few methods described in the draft bill as offsetting the cost of the strategic Bitcoin reserve. The plan calls for the setting aside of $6 billion from any net earnings remitted by the Federal Reserve to the Treasury from the fiscal years of 2025 through 2029, and it would reduce the discretionary surplus funds of Federal Reserve banks to $2.4 billion from $6.825 billion, the level that currently stipulated in the Federal Reserve Act. And so this bill is not only going to be drastically reducing the Federal Reserve's profit margin, but is also going to be absolutely focused on creating a decentralized storage facility, decentralized network of secure Bitcoin storage facilities distributed across the United States. And now here we go, guys. There is also the revaluation of the Federal Reserve Bank's gold certificates to reflect their fair market value. Under the plan, within 6 months of enactment of the legislation, Federal Reserve banks would tender all their outstanding gold certificates to the Treasury Secretary. Within 90 days after that, the Treasury Secretary would issue new gold certificates to the Federal Reserve banks that reflect the fair market value price of the gold. The Federal Reserve banks would then remit the difference in cash value between the old and new certificates to the Treasury Secretary. As of July 24th, Federal Reserve banks held gold stock, quote unquote, gold stock, valued at $11 billion, according to the central bank's most recent balance sheet updates. And that valuation, guys, I think this one is very, very big. I think there's a lot more here. That valuation might be based on the official U.S. book value of $42.22 per troy ounce, which the Federal Reserve Bank of New York uses to value its gold. But the market value of gold is more than 50 times that. 50 times that, with front month future contracts on the yellow metal trading up around $2,400. And so, think about currently valuing the gold held by the Federal Reserve at $42 an ounce. $42 an ounce. And they are going to take, in a matter of 6 months of enactment of the legislation, they're going to remove all outstanding gold certificates. That means all paper gold will be returned back to the government and then will be reissued at a proper valuation. At a proper valuation. That value is currently being determined off of $42.22. It is not worth anywhere near that. It's worth infinitely more than that. $2,400 is still too low. And so this announcement and this bill, in all honesty, I think is probably the biggest news in all of major changes to the global financial system. If this is Donald Trump's plan, and we're seeing Donald Trump's plan being presented right in front of us, because obviously they're working together. Obviously, he is working with Cynthia Lummis. There's no way that was a coincidence. And that means this is most likely influenced by Donald Trump himself and the administration. And there is so much. All right, Savvy, I'm lost. So what in the Troy does it mean? What does it mean? It means that the United States government, under this legislation, the Federal Reserve, would be instructed to actually give up and withdraw all gold certificates from the entire American economic system. All gold certificates. So if that gold is owned on paper, it has got to come back. And then it will be reissued at its proper valuation. It will then be reissued. All gold held by the U.S. Federal Reserve right now in a gold certificate is being valued at $42. And that means that when it is reissued, and when it is reissued out to wherever it is reissued, it is going to take a 50x increase in its general valuation absolutely right off the top. That could end up bleeding into the entire gold market. That could bleed in to, hey, Tahoe, there's the question right there. It will be, all right, under the plan, within 6 months, all Federal Reserve banks would tender all of their outstanding gold certificates to the Treasury Secretary. Within 90 days of the Treasury Secretary receiving them, they would issue new gold certificates to the Federal Reserve banks that reflect the fair market value price of the gold. And so every bank that has gold on paper, that has gold on the balance sheets, would be forced to hand over their gold, and then it would be reissued at fair market value. That's a big announcement. We're talking about, and keep in mind, so Federal Reserve banks hold quote unquote gold stock valued at 11 billion. Valued at about 11 billion, according to the central bank's most recent bank sheet update. But that valuation of $11 billion of Federal Reserve gold is based off of a $42 ounce price. Which means even if we are just talking about what we currently have, and there is no funny business going on, it would be 11 billion times 50. It would be 11 billion times 50. Just in one fell swoop. And that would be based off of the current price of gold being considered to be absolutely legitimate. That would just be based off if we truly believe that gold is only worth what it currently is on the fair market. That would be a 50x increase in one fell swoop to the Federal Reserve's gold holdings. And that's assuming that now these are distributed between Federal Reserve banks all over the United States. And that's assuming they've been on the up and up with us. this would make a major, major shift in the entire idea of the value of gold and silver. As a matter of fact, I'm planning on calling Andy as soon as I possibly can this evening to try and get some announcements from him. Also, Andy said he was going to be on the Whiskey and Wisdom tonight, and so if he is, I'm going to be grilling him on this one. My apologies, since it is our Whiskey and Wisdom time. But ultimately, these are a lot of really a lot of the things we've been talking about. I've been hearing for many years being discussed in terms of revaluing the gold, revaluing your silver, reconsidering how the Federal Reserve and especially Federal Reserve banks operate. This is it, written down on paper, endorsed by, obviously, Donald Trump and the Republican Party, and it's occurring right now. This is brand new. This is not something that's ever been put out there in the past. And so this is a U.S. senator coming out and saying that currently we're valuing a troy ounce. And so for those that are curious, troy ounce versus regular ounce of gold. There are two types of ounces. A troy ounce is 31.1 grams, whereas a normal ounce is 28.3495. So guys, when I'm saying a troy ounce, keep in mind that means it is more than a normal ounce. Matter of fact, it's darn near 3 grams, a little under 3 grams more than a normal ounce of gold or silver, approximately 10% heavier. And so whenever you hear a troy ounce thrown around, it's the same thing in gold, same thing in silver. It means it's about 10% bigger than a normal ounce. I'm certain that we could have a lot of fun diving into the history of that, but that will be a topic for another day, diving into where the troy ounce came from. But yes, so for those that are looking at that number and saying that 11 billion, and that would be at troy ounce, and a troy ounce is valued at 42.22, add 10%, which would be 4.2, which would mean right now they're already saying that an ounce of U.S. gold would, somewhere closer to 46.66, I guess. Which, yeah, kind of weird how that math worked out right there. All right. And yes, there's so many questions. The Rothschilds own the Fed. Felix the Cat, the Rothschilds own the Fed. Well, they said they were going to force all reserve banks to actually send them back to the Treasury Secretary, not to the Fed. And so there's another important distinction. Federal Reserve banks would tender all their outstanding gold certificates to the Treasury Secretary. Treasury Secretary. And CK, my understanding is the Federal Reserve is gone. This doesn't make sense. Maybe this is it being talked about in public. Unless this is it being talked about in public. Keep in mind, on the mainstream, a lot of these things are still very much in existence. And right now, what you're seeing in this idea is that they are going to remove all the gold reserves from the Federal Reserve. And the Treasury Secretary is going to be in charge of that. Keep in mind, this is a separate branch of the government. The U.S. Treasury would be in charge of the U.S. gold again. This is them telling you exactly what you have been listening, learning, reading about for possibly years now. This is exactly what they told you, is that they were going to take away the Federal Reserve and they were going to take away their gold, their assets, their everything else. This is removing it and taking it back to the U.S. Treasury. Now, of course, I'm still going to be very worried about what the U.S. Treasury does with it, but I mean, they can't do a worse job than the Federal Reserve, I guess. That is what they're saying. That is what they are saying. And so, guys, we went a long time on this one because it was extremely exciting information, in my opinion. And of course, guys, always remember, this is legislation. This is legislation, and it is deeply tied to this election. I mean, it is beyond deeply tied to this election. If things do not go the right way, this legislation does not occur. So we always have to remember that we have a major part to play in all of these things. But I'm going to go ahead and once again, and I know Pops is going to be jumping all over this one also because I have not gotten a chance to talk to him about it. And so I have a feeling you're going to get far more opinions than just my own on this topic. Keep in mind, this was essentially a buried article. It came out yesterday and it had no views. Nobody noticed it. Nobody paid any attention to it. And I think it possibly was some of the biggest news we could have possibly been looking forward to seeing. And so, all right, I need to jump forward and slam through some news, guys. Russia to allow crypto payments in international trade to counter sanctions. Extremely expected, but it is more and more adoption of crypto. Keep in mind, guys, that crypto in Russia has been very much based around things like XRP, XLM, Bitcoin, etc. And so that means that Russia is planning on allowing crypto payments in those currencies, not in all cryptos. A very important point to make. And also possibly the reason that we see XRP being the only green on the board. When we look at Bitcoin down, Ethereum down more, BNB pretty much right where it's supposed to be. Well, overvalued, but right where it's currently at. Solana down, XRP up and heading up. XRP at 63 cents. I would absolutely correlate that with a lot of this news coming out from different central banks of other foreign countries saying that they plan on allowing crypto payments in international trade because most likely those trades are going to be conducted in either Bitcoin or XRP, one of the two. I think that a lot of times we're going to start seeing that discussion made where people are going to say, do you want cash or do you want gold? And when they say, do you want cash? They're going to give them XRP. When they say they want gold, they're going to give them Bitcoin. Right now, that's the way it seems to be framing itself. All right, though, in regards to the price drops that we have seen in Bitcoin, Mt. Gox moves over $2 billion worth of Bitcoin to fresh address. I would like to point out that while the title says Mt. Gox moves over $2 billion, this is a federally orchestrated sell-off. And so it is not Mt. Gox. It's not Mt. Gox. It's a federally orchestrated sell-off and redistribution of criminally stolen goods. And so over $2 billion more. And that is where I got the $4 billion moved by the U.S. government in just the past 2 days number from. All right. And yes, for those that were watching, and so this is a little bit delayed in terms of the announcement, but Trump crypto event remarks delayed due to security concerns. And so there were apparently, after 2 individuals during the event on Saturday were removed from the premises ahead of the speech, according to the U.S. Secret Service. These 2 individuals were credentialed and screened, but were removed for not following proper entry protocols. Secret Service says that they were never a threat to the president. But that is the reason that everything was delayed on that day. Apparently, that's the reason it was so difficult to lock down the time in which Trump was going to go on stage. This could easily be an absolute nothing style story. I mean, keep in mind, the Secret Service is probably losing their crap over how close they came to having a catastrophic failure. It was already an insane degree of failure in Butler, PA, this would have been beyond a catastrophic failure. And so maybe the Secret Service was just being overly protective. Maybe they're not giving us the full story. Either way, that is the reason behind why Trump was delayed during his speech at the Bitcoin conference. And then to go ahead and jump ahead, the $35 trillion of national debt held by the United States could bolster Bitcoin's adoption as hard money. Bitcoin could see a new all-time high due to the growing U.S. federal debt, which has surpassed $105,000 for every living person in the country. You and every single one of us. I owe $105,000. You owe $105,000. The newborn baby that is just making its first screams into this world and has so much future and potential was just born with $105,000 worth of debt. That is the world that we currently look at in regards to our government financial issues. And they have sold our futures. Because you and I and everyone else, we're here and we're running around and it's already an amount of money there's no way we're going to pay. Are you planning on giving them $105,000 to make your contribution when you know everyone else isn't going to? No, of course not. I'm not going to. No one's going to. But think about the kids. Think about the kids that are coming that haven't even been born yet. They're going to hit 18 and they're going to technically owe millions of dollars to debt that they never had any part of, that they never saw any benefit from. It's an absolute joke. And it's going to result in a massive amount of Americans and of people in the future looking towards cryptocurrencies and precious metals and really relying on them. And so if you can't trust your government not to destroy your currency, you're going to either have to go the route of a digital currency or of physical metals. Physical metals are hard to trade in. And so I think that a lot of people are still operating under this perspective. They're going either I get digital Bitcoin, crypto, or I get physical gold and silver, and both have problems. And I think that a vast majority of investors really aren't considering the possibility that these two things may come together in the near future, and that they may be able to have the best of both worlds. But for right now, that's not the way people are thinking, at least not the way the mainstream talking heads are portraying it. And so we are going to see a massive increase in Bitcoin holders, crypto holders, and precious metal holders in the coming days and weeks and months and years until the United States gets a hold of its debt and inflation issues. That is the reason that Bitcoin exists. It is to protect us from centralized governments. That's the reason it was made. It is to protect us from them. All right, though, guys, I'm going to actually save this article to talk about later. And so at that point, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it. And so we did have an interesting one. I'm about to actually call Pops, the original Mark Z, and talk to him right now about the article in regards to the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and the revaluation of the Fed's gold. And I'm also going to make certain that Andy Schechtman is there tonight, or I'm going to have to give him a buttload of a hard time in the near future, because this is a big one. This is an extremely interesting topic, and maybe there's far more going on about this than just Bitcoin. We're talking about revaluing the Fed's gold. That's going to be interesting. And yeah, well, Pops, you may already know more about it. You may know that I shouldn't have been talking about it, and yet I am. And so we'll see. But there's something there, but I can guess why you might not want to talk about it. But all right, guys, thank you all so much for joining today. You are Greatly, greatly appreciated. Tina appreciates you. And I cannot wait to see you guys later on at Whiskey and Wisdom. And so thank you. See you then. As always, love you guys. And remember, please, to keep members of the community absolutely in your prayers. All right. See you guys.